Hi, everyone. I'm Meryl Stewart, CEO of Marketing and Business Solutions. Today, I wanted to talk about telling your story. And I know I've talked about storytelling before, but this is a little bit different. I recently had the opportunity to work with a board of directors on their retreat. And really, the focus was to help them tell their story. But we did a little bit of a kind of adjustment. Most of the time, when I'm talking to people about telling their story, a lot of times it's about trying to get them to memorize or really understand something about the organization or business that they're working with so that they can better tell that organization or business's story. But this time we focused more on the individual's personal story and their personal or professional connection to the organization. So it just looked a little bit different. I think it was a lot more kind of self-reflection, a lot more inward kind of reflection and thinking about what brought them to the organization in the first place. So I want to run through with you about 5 things that we worked on in that session that really was amazing. We had an incredibly engaged group of people, which is always nice for the presenter, but it was just a really great level of conversation among about 25 or so people. So the first thing that I had them work on was really thinking about why they care. And remember, the organization, this specific organization, can help bring people up to speed on lots of other things that they may need to know that are facts and figures and statistics and impact about this organization. That's not what we were worried so much about. What we wanted was for the board members to feel really good about sharing this personal story, to make that personal connection so that if they're introducing someone to the organization or they're having a conversation with a potential investor or donor, that they could make that genuine, authentic connection with them. So this first question, why do I care? What I had them do was really sit down for, I don't know, maybe about a minute, 2 minutes, and write down 5 things that they really cared about, 5 things that just came to their mind about the reasons why they got involved or the reasons why they're passionate about the cause of this organization. And then we paused and we then went into kind of a pairing of people at the table and had them share their why with each other. That's important because I believe in practice, we remember things a lot better if we actually do them versus just absorbing them, whether we visually absorb them or auditory, absorption. So it's really important that they practice kind of what's in their heads and what's in their hearts and practice it with another person. So we did that first. The second question that I had them focus on was why someone should contribute to the organization and not necessarily what they're going to contribute to. We didn't do that yet. This is why. So why should other people care about the work of the organization? And this is really about the impact piece. I think a lot of times board members feel kind of under pressure to memorize facts and figures about an organization. And the work that I've done with people kind of on that elevator speech gets a little tricky because everybody doesn't memorize things the way that everybody else does. But if you've had some type of experience at or with the organization that you can reflect upon, it's a lot easier to tell that story. So this why should someone contribute to your organization is kind of a mix between things that you've maybe experienced as a board member or seen firsthand, but it could also be things that you know that you've learned over time about the great work that they've done or where the money goes or why there's such a need in the community that this organization stands out. So that was exercise number 2. Exercise number 3 was a story about someone who the organization has helped. And I'm going to try to break this down as simply as possible. I think a lot of times we get caught up in all of the components that are needed in a story to tell a story that we forget what we're even talking about. And I didn't want this group to get caught up in that. I wanted them to focus on 3 very simple things when they chose the story that they were going to tell. They didn't have to write out paragraphs. They didn't have to try to memorize something. They simply had to tell me what the situation was. So who is the person in the story? What was their situation? The second is the drama or the crisis. What happened, that was bad? What happened that was happening to them that needed some type of intervention? And the third piece is, what's the happy ending? Hopefully there's a happy ending, but what's the ending in the sense that how did the organization help them? So in this case, it was a healthcare organization. So there were a lot of stories about patients, a lot of stories about team members that had experienced something or seen a patient or experienced some type of significant challenge that someone came in with, maybe a condition. And over, a period of expertise or visits or some type of surgery or immediate necessary action, this person was able to get better and heal, and live to tell the tale. So it was really a simple breakdown: the situation, the drama or the crisis, and what's the ending. And the important part about that is to interweave the organization into that, right? So with this healthcare organization, it was pretty easy to do that. Someone, let's just say, is coming into the emergency room or finds out that they're having some type of medical condition or issue. They come in, they're getting help, and then the result is that they're getting better or something. They can kind of share their story with others to help inspire awareness. So, it was a fairly simplistic thing, but it doesn't have to be hard to do. Telling your story or telling a story of someone that's impacted can be very simple. The other thing that dawned on me while I was preparing for this was that I think a lot of times board members specifically don't get out into the work of the organization as often as probably they like, or that staff and others hope. And so as I've been interviewing board members as part of different strategy plans that we're working on, what I've been asking people is, when's the last time that they experienced something? When's the last time that they went out into, the actual work of the organization and had their own experience? Not necessarily because they needed help, but because they could witness something. They could see something happening that, helps them remember a story. And I think about things, simple as, let's just take an animal organization. If you're able to go and watch a veterinarian perform a procedure on an animal and then see that animal recover and then see the connections that are made, with potential humans who are willing to adopt that animal, you're more likely to remember that story because you were personally witnessed and involved in it versus someone telling you that story, hoping that it sticks, hoping you remembered all the details and that it came across just as inspirational. So I urge you, if you are a board member or if you're an organization that is looking for a way to better engage your board members in storytelling, get them out there, have them experience something for themselves, invite them to something where they're kind of forced to experience it firsthand so that they have a better kind of first person view of telling that story to someone else who's interested. The fourth exercise that we very briefly touched on, because I do believe that organizations, have a responsibility to update their board members on what they need money for. But we did a very short exercise on what's the money for. If we're raising money, and part of the duty of this board member is to go out and talk to somebody and inspire them or make that introduction, we need to let them know why, why we're raising this money and why it's important. So I urged them to write down 3 different things that the funds could be used for. Obviously, in this scenario, the development team was on hand, fundraising team, to help them facilitate that conversation. But it is important that your board members understand what you need. And a lot of times I think we assume that they know because they've been in board meetings and finance committee meetings and looked at the budget and participated in events. But you'd be surprised at how many of them really don't understand where it goes. So as an organization, as a development professional, or anyone else that's on a leadership team, it's really important that you help them understand, and not just round figures, like help them understand the impact. If I give you $250,000 or $500,000 or name the number, I have to be able to explain how we use it, not from a restricted perspective that it can only be used for this type of thing. I have to be able to help people understand the impact of that number. Does it help 10 people? Does it help 100 animals? What does it do? So that's more of the issue that I'm trying to get at from a storytelling perspective. The last thing that we worked with these board members on was kind of a visioning statement. What is it that we want them to, what is it that they're thinking of, that could happen if the organization met its goals, or the organization had all of the resources that it needed. In a perfect world, if there were no barriers or obstacles, what could that organization accomplish? And it's important because board members need to be able to talk about where we're headed, right? It's not just the CEO's job to be able to explain that. Board members are advocates and some of your closest advocates to the organization. So being able to really vocalize their vision for where you're going and buy into the vision of leadership and others within the organization is really important. So we just generally had them share some ideas. What are some wonderful things that could be accomplished if the organization, had everything that it needed or could raise all the money that it was able to raise? What things could we really change in our world and in our community if that happened? That really sets the stage for the more global impact that organization has on a community or a region or an area. Because if we're able to provide these services, or programs, it could literally lead to ending something, that's been really difficult to end. And so that type of kind of visioning is important because we want to stay passionate. We want to stay motivated to keep doing this work. So I hope this helps you. Just some insight into maybe how to tell your story a little bit different, especially for board members. If you'd like to learn more about what we do and how we support organizations, especially nonprofits, please visit www.mymabs.com. That's MYMABS.com. You can also visit us on our YouTube channel. We have lots of episodes, great information to help you with your business or your organization. And I hope you will join us again and learn more about how we can help you and pick up something that maybe you can share with others. Thanks for joining me. Bye.